Hello, and welcome to the Narrowing Path, Walking the Spiritual Walk. My name is Stephen Eiderstein. Thank you all for joining me again today. For today's reading from James Allen Daily Meditations, this will be fresh to you and fresh to me, meaning that you'll get my genuine response, reactions, observations, what to relate to about the readings. So, last couple days have definitely been interesting, so I'm looking forward to today's, and thank y'all for going with me on this journey. So, here we go. This is going to be September 20th reading from James Allen's Daily Meditations. The overcoming of self is the annihilation of all sorrow-producing elements. The doctrine of the overcoming or annihilation of self is simplicity itself. Indeed, so simple, practical, and close at hand it is that a child of 5, whose mind has not yet become clouded with theories, theological schemes, and speculative philosophies, would be far more likely to comprehend it than many older people who have lost their hold upon simple and beautiful truths by the adoption of complicated theories. The annihilation of self consists in weeding out and destroying all those elements in the soul which lead to division, strife, suffering, disease, and sorrow. It does not mean the destruction of any good and beautiful and peace-producing quality. The overcoming of self is the cultivation of all the divine qualities. I enjoy this. This is a good one. This is what I think is the ideal most of us strive for. Where we get caught up is holding on to our personality, I think, a lot of times, because many don't identify that. I know I didn't identify that as something that's self-centered to hold on to, and that it was a manufactured personality most of the time, all the time, actually. So, this is quite interesting and very eye-opening when you think about it. When he calls out that a child of 5 can understand it, but when you've accepted other doctrines is when we have a hard time, when it gets complicated. We complicate it because we accept something else besides the truth. So, what have you accepted? So here we go. The overcoming of self is the annihilation of all sorrow-producing elements. And that's a pretty powerful statement, right? So anything that causes you harm, pain, grief, sorrow, guilt, shame, those perspectives and those opinions are of your own. That is you. That is the self you need to overcome. That is the self you need to annihilate. They need to get rid of and replace it and practice more so these ideal qualities, these spiritual virtues, spiritual principles. Ground your character and yourself in spirituality in all ways. The overcoming of self is the annihilation of all sorrow-producing elements. So anytime you feel depressed, anytime you feel sorrowful, find out where you are thinking about you, or you're being selfish, self-centered, selfish, and strive to remove that. Strive to practice something different. Strive to be God-centered, strive to be other-centered, strive to be anything but what you have been being. The doctrine for the overcoming or annihilation of self is simplicity itself. Is simplicity itself. It's always the simple stuff that catches me off guard. Always. I like to overcomplicate things. I like to make things seem more intricate and have more pieces than they need to. When in reality, I haven't found a situation yet where a simple answer will fix it. Usually, when self gets involved and self serving thought processes get involved, is when things get complicated. So, the doctrine of overcoming annihilation of self is simplicity itself. Now, what's he say afterwards? Indeed, so simple, practical, and close at hand is it that a child of 5 years old, which mind has not yet become clouded, that's a very specific word used, with theories, theological schemes, and speculative philosophies, would be far more likely to comprehend it. So these things, these man-made things, these man-made hierarchies, value systems never work. And all they do is seek to complicate things and cloud, come between, obscure what the truth really is. And I like how he used clouds because sometimes you can see through the clouds if they're light enough, but you can't see what's really behind them, right? So these things, theories, theological schemes, so religion and speculative philosophies, cloud the vision of a human being and a spirit. So we can no longer see the overcoming of self. And a 5 year old would be much more likely to comprehend it than any older people who have lost their hold upon simple and beautiful truths by the adoption of complicated theories. I mean, serve the God of your understanding, period. Practice his principles, period. Like simple answers in all ways, in all areas of life. Practice the virtues, practice these principles, be disciplined. We don't like to do it. We like to make it more difficult. We like to say things are hard because we like to extend them and hold on to our own behaviors for longer. Or we complicate the scenario. It's much different. It's pretty straightforward at the end of the day. We just don't like it. I just don't like it. Maybe I should keep it on me. He goes on in the next paragraph. The annihilation of self consists in weeding out and destroying all of those elements in the soul which lead to division, strife, suffering, disease, and sorrow. So, all of this negative stuff, division, so judgment against each other, separation, identification with a certain group or tendency, strife, suffering, right? Victimization, all of these things, unfairness, disease. I mean, just in general, spiritual, mental, emotional, physical disease, and sorrow, loss, grief. All of these things are self centered and selfish and self identifying, aren't they? The world isn't going the way I want it to. I'm not being treated the way I think I should be treated. These are common complaints and common plights today, are they not? All of these things are self in some way or manifestation. And when you think about it that way, you can kind of go back to the front end of it. So where am I thinking about me? Where am I worried about myself more than what's actually going on? And the mental state we've talked about causes disease, right? How we think, how we conduct ourselves causes disease in our physical bodies in many, many ways. So all of these things have roots in selfish and self-centeredness, self-serving. And should we just simply switch our master, as it says, instead of the master of self, which leads us down a road of depravity and pain. Go down a road of serving God, serving self, or not serving self, serving society, serving others. It's a whole different understanding. He ends the main body of this year. It does not mean the destruction of any good and beautiful and peace producing quality, right? Which is pretty much anything that serves others or serves the God of your understanding, right? So, any of the virtues we talk about on here, we're talking about honesty, faith, hope, forgiveness, love, kindness, compassion, service, I say courage, integrity. These are big discipline. That's another one. Perseverance. Discipline, more so discipline, but these are crucial things to understand. Those things will not produce chaos when we do them in the service of God and others. This is important to understand. What we need to get rid of are the things that cause division, strife, suffering, disease, and sorrow. Those will never be of God. Those will never be of that ideal, of that greater power, whatever you might want to call it. Those are of ourself. So it does not mean the destruction of any good and beautiful and peace producing quality. So the closing line, the overcoming of self is the cultivation of all of the divine qualities. The overcoming of self is the cultivation of all the divine qualities. Cultivate these things. And one of the biggest things we need to do is swap. We need to exchange things. If I want to stop lying, I've got to be honest. I've got to tell the truth. Got to be forthright, right? I have to have a different thing to practice, because if I just focus on stopping doing something, I'm still thinking about doing it. I need to focus on the doing of something else. For me, it was staying sober. For me, it was staying honest. For me, it was practicing faith. It was taking suggestions, things like that. I need to cultivate these ideal qualities, the qualities of our ideal, more so Christ-like, righteous qualities, and live my life grounded in those, so I can stand outside of the insanity this physical world brings us. So I can stand steadfast in this world and in this life. So, all right, well, there we have it. That's today's reading. Really, really enjoyed this one. We got back to a little bit of the personal accountability again on this, and always a great subject to talk about. So, I appreciate everyone jumping on and walking through this one with me today as well. And I'm looking forward to tomorrow's. So, until next time, thanks.